Enterprise TV, a tradition of truth.
Hello and welcome. Now you can call it a blast from the past, but the truth is that music, like the truth itself, is timeless. This is Highlife channel on Enterprise TV, and I am Akin Fatunke.
I am Citizen Jones Hussein, Akin Fatunke's colleague on this channel. Come, let us explore the life and times of a gentleman known from birth as John Akintola Ademowagun, aka Roy Chicago, the Highlifer. Promises to be a good run. Come with us. Akin, are you ready?
I'm ready.
Okay.
I like to say very clearly that Roy Chicago straddles the high life generally more like a colossus. Started in 1946 when he was in primary school. I know he was born in 1937. Okay.
Yeah.
So I mean 1946 when he schooled in Saple, and then after his primary school,
he was the school band leader or something like that. Yeah.
He was a teacher.
Yeah.
And also the school band leader. He taught in a couple of schools. And what he did was, after the normal teaching pros, he of course took up the school bands, and the school bands were beginning to make a lot of
a top
social
impression on him. So he knew he wanted to be a musician from that early age.
And while being a music teacher, afforded him the opportunity of learning how to play instruments. You know, I mean, he could play a couple of instruments, and he then majored in playing the trumpet.
Well, especially after he left Sapele and moved on to Ibadan. There was this popular hotel on Adamasingba Street. That's in Ibadan.
That is Central Hotel.
Central Hotel.
Yes.
Adamasingba, Ibadan. He moved to Lagos in the late 50s and joined forces with the late, great Bobby Benson, who was a grandfather of sorts.
Actually, in 1946, he was in primary school, and by as a matter of fact, by 1957, he came to Lagos and actually joined Herbert Ogunde's group.
Okay.
And then had a short stint with Herbert Ogunde, and thereafter, of course, went to the fathers of them all, the Bobby Benson, and you know, at that time himself, Victor Olaya were making the waves. He now had a reason why he had to go to Ibadan. Okay. And when he got to Ibadan, he formed the Greenfield, Greenfield band from Greenfield Hotel in Ibadan.
Okay.
It was for a short period of time.
Yeah.
Came back to Lagos, played with Bobby Benson, and they released quite a number of songs in there before he now decided to set up on his own. And as at that time, he was virtually a master in sax, in the trumpet.
Thanks to Bobby Benson.
And in vocals. And he was just on and on there. In the early 60s.
Let me just add, there was a lull in the high life of Nigeria at the time, so to speak, because of our war.
1966.
Many of the bands that helped promote high life music in the 60s were mainly guys from the eastern region of Nigeria.
Absolutely. You're correct. You're right on the dot there. In fact, many of them were in Lagos.
Yeah.
And then you had the rest Jim Lawsons of this world.
Yeah.
Even Jimmy Sholanke, now of blessed memory, who vocaled and who did a few months after his stint at University of Ibadan, joined in Lagos. But after the war, like you rightly said, it was like
we must not forget names like Zeb Phillips, Joe Nays, who again, Ian Henshaw. There are many.
The Bassi and co. And don't forget at the flanks also the likes of apart from Victor Olaya, we had the likes of Victor Waifu, who was doing his thing, his Jerome thing, and all that. But what stood Roy Chicago?
Victor Waifu would eternally thank Isi Arinze, if you remember Isi Arinze.
Isi Arinze, Nike, you know, and all that. A little anecdote. Back in those days, you know, the music stars, they had their good, they had their bad, they had their ugly, and the story was told.
So I don't forget, Victor Waifu, as an ex-student of St. Gregory's College, Lagos. You know, St. Gregory's had the knack of producing schoolboy bands. If you remember the Ofege.
The Ofege eventually came later. And like many of the legacy schools back in the day, I mean, Uwaifu was also
an athlete.
Very home athlete.
He was an all-rounder.
And it came, the legacy school, when I was Boys High School, Baptist Academy, Lagos, King's College, you know, it just came on. But the anecdote I wanted to mention was something very interesting that happened to Roy Chicago at the height, or what they call the apogee of his music career. They had gone to do a show. And
the accident where he killed somebody.
Around, it must be around that Adekunle Yaba area. And then, of course,
there was that lull.
Everybody now then said, no, it cannot be. And I said, look, the law must take its course. But somehow, somewhat, it served some time. But, you know, I mean, the noise just did not go down well.
Even when Roy Chicago served time, he will thank the late Tunde Oshofison for holding fort for him.
While we are talking about Tunde Oshofison, before Tunde Oshofison died, we had a couple of stints. He died at Amuwu Odofi Estate there. And I asked Tunde Oshofison, what was the lure? What is the lure about?
What took you here?
And he said, well, you know, what they normally had to do is Roy Chicago will sing. He will also sing. They will cast a bit of a wigger. And then people say,
a lot,
And then it will now then say, you also must naturally remember Mike Enahoro,
guitarist,
and the guitar that he did.
Mike Enahoro, also broadcaster.
And when they were rehearsing for the Maria, they were and all that, Tunde Oshofison's voice went on air amongst so many others. And I asked him the misgivings that you have between band leaders.
And band boys.
Now, and band boys, and band leaders and band girls now. Was it a thing at your time? He confirmed something that Ebenezer Obey made. And Shino Adewale, that as far as they were concerned, they were not business inclined. Once you have some biscuits, cabin biscuits,
you were home and dry.
You were just going to go on and on. But Roy Chicago came. Roy Chicago saw. Roy Chicago also delivered, because immediately after the war, they came back. The likes of Alaba Pedro all came until the final disbanding of the band in 1969. I dare say that Roy Chicago came. Roy Chicago saw. Roy Chicago actually conquered.
Also, it would remain to his eternal credit that Roy infused the talking drum into Highlife music, something that was not common in those days.
That was,
of course, during the war, the lull in Highlifing gave rise to Juju music.
And the Juju music.
Juju variant came.
And that genre came, and they sit down, play guitar and all that. But you are right, Roy Chicago introduced talking drum into music. I know that the jury is still on. Is talking drum fits for purpose for Highlife or not? But he did it and blended it well.
Oh yeah.
We must not fail to also.
It was not difficult for it to catch up, because if the rhythm was danceable, that's it.
And
the lyrics, very important.
And don't forget talking drums from the team of Eddie at that time.
Okay.
I mean, talking drum says, of course, dancers and everybody will now begin to parrot it and all that. There is an aspect of Roy Chicago, his history, which, like most of the stars of Highlife at that time, got a downturn because sometime much later, he left Highlife, and then Modeke Street off Ojuelegba there, he had a club that they called Roy Chicago Club, and he was just doing clubbing. There was no more singing, and you will see him carrying bottles and all that. We didn't think that should have been the kind of life that it should have ended with. If they understood the business aspect, and I could see that the Juju genre that came after, the Sonny Ades, and then, the Obeys.
You have forgotten the man and the wife, who played a variant of Juju music.
The name just went off me now. I mean, they had
the man and the wife.
The man and the wife.
They both played the guitar.
They played the wife.
Julius Araba.
Yeah. So they came, and again, many of these people were not real business friendly, and royalties were just not coming to them. But it stands to the credit of
everything changed. Royalties now. Everything changed when Ebenezer Obey became chairman of the Nigerian Copyright Commission.
Commission, and then eventually
I remember I was somewhere at Uyo, and I ran into Emmanuel Ntia, leader of the Eastern Stars Dance Band then.
At that time.
And we talked about royalties, and I mentioned to him, one of you is the chairman of the Copyright Commission. I put a call straight to Ebenezer Obey, and he spoke with him. And the rest, as they say, is history.
And in between that rest and history is the typical Nigerian thing. I mean, the infighting, not having the same vision, alleged money or no money. You remember Tony Okoroji? And it went on and on. I must say that before he passed on, a question was asked of Roy Chicago. Roy Chicago, what should be your legacy? What should people remember you by? Very interesting. Roy Chicago said, my music will stand the test of time. Tuni Oshufison, who eventually passed on years after him, also mentioned the fact that that music will stand the test of time. Unfortunately, many of them fell into issues of
you talk about
medical conditions.
You talk about the legacy of Roy Chicago. I cannot forget that former members of the band include Cardinal Rex Jim Lawson, who was a trumpeter and vocalist, mixing Igbo and Kalabari. Lyrics, you know, in his song. You also had Jimmy Sholanke, who you mentioned. Alaba Pedro was a fine guitarist for Roy Chicago, and would you believe it, in Young Henshaw.
And I can say for sure, by the time we begin to trace from grandfather, father, son, as we say in technology balance, you will find that somebody like Rex Jim Lawson, I'm also hearing that he has a link to Togo. And part of the things that came into his music were a bit of dialects of the Togo way. I am usually, Sis Jones, time not always being on our side.
But let me drop this before the time does any more damage. Musicians of yore wrote their songs, and their songs carried messages. Not anymore. But Aki, you know, musicians like Roy Chicago, Olaya, Rex Jim Lawson, sang about our weaknesses, our strengths, our successes, our failures. And of course, they left something for you and I.
For the
Roy Chicago, I cannot forget Kirigbe Emu. You remember
that?
Idemino Oluwa.
Kilem lo moluwa o, kilem lo moluwa o baba. Kirigbe Emu.
Idemino. You remember Inobante Eremureo.
Inobante. And then
but I cannot forget the biggest of them all, or one of the biggest, Wazobia. Wadede Yoba.
Akinfafora.
Wazobia.
Akinfafora wrote that.
Hausa.
Wazobia.
Walede Igbo. Wazobia. Nile Nigeria.
Walede Meta. I mean, again, our coming together in unity has always been things that we have sang about, but usually we don't we don't live them. And again, whether you are changing currency, whether, you know, I mean, a king was being coronated, whether we are going to change a government, whether to military or non-military.
You remember when we moved from left to driving right?
Yes.
It was a big event.
Oh, yes.
On Sunday, April 2nd, 1972. I cannot forget.
1973.
72.
Was it 72?
72.
Okay, 72, 73. And I remember, okay, there was one...
Musicians sang about that event.
When we changed, and then we changed to currency, Naira and Kobo, and all that, it came for me.
By the way, do you remember Eddie Okonta? You will remember him.
I remember Eddie Okonta very well, yes.
What about...
and his trumpet.
The Calypsonian. Godwin
Omabua and Zil Onyia before them.
Come on, the list is endless.
They had a way of writing songs.
They sent a message with every song.
And every song had a meaning. Not just that every song had a meaning, it also had some epoch about it. I remember Jimmy Sholanke, his Onile Gogoro, which he wrote for the band, Onile Gogoro, and it became an instant hit. One way, one Gogoro.
Onile Gogoro Pode.
Oromare Aradugo.
Oh, come on.
Oh my God! I think it went.
I wish we could play some of
the songs. Ìyàwó pankeke, agbojulogun, ìyàwó pankeke. When we are asking us to get back into morality, that is the way it is. And because time is not our friend, I like to say that high life is music with meaning, loaded with more meaning than a few lines and few stanzas could carry. Let us just say, Roy Chicago's was a legacy now bequeathed to us for all time. Well, until High Life channel comes your way again, keep well, and keep listening.
Bye-bye now.
Bye for now.
Enterprise TV, a tradition of truth.